Welcome to another episode of the Rankum Podcast. Glad to have you along with us. I'm Garrett Seawright. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Seawright. You can find the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Rankum Podcast. Wherever you download your podcasts, you can give us a 5-star review, subscribe, like, whatever you can to help us out. It really does help, and so we appreciate you doing that. Joining me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Don Garwood.
Live from Master Command, it's Saturday at noon.
There's Don. And joining us as our guest this week is my younger brother, Zach.
How we doing?
And you can find Zach on Twitter at Zach Seawright. The H is for hate. Make sure you're tweeting at Zach with an H, Seawright. And Don is on Twitter at Donnie_G.
Fact.
And as you might be able to deduce from the title of this episode and Don's drop-in, we are going to rank our favorite Saturday Night Live cast members today.
Indubitably.
So not characters, not
Skits.
actors. Yeah, skits that went and that was the suggestion. Was we appreciate Jordan messaging us on Facebook and giving us that suggestion. He suggested Saturday Night Live skits. We thought cast members would be a little easier, so we went with that because skits are difficult to explain on a podcast. So Saturday Night Live actors, and this is just while they were on Saturday Night Live.
Right, and not like just celebrities who have been on it like 2 or 3 times or anything like that. People who were on like a season of Saturday Night Live or more. If they came back and did additional skits after they were off the cast and now like they're famous people so they can come back and host a show, some of those skits might get brought up from when they came back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's allowable, I think. If you were on the show for 6 years and then come back to
4 years later
to host the show, I have no problem with that. So that is what we are ranking today. And as always, we do not discuss our lists ahead of time. We have no idea what each of us are going to say. So our reactions are completely 100,000,000% live, and we have no idea what each other
unadulterated.
That's a great word to use, Don. I appreciate your extensive
candor
vocabulary. Now you're just germane. So Zach, you are our very esteemed guest. So you start us off with your number 5 Saturday Night Live cast member.
My number 5 Saturday Night Live cast member, excuse me, is Dan Aykroyd. He's an all-time comedy great. Don, you're kind of.
I'm just waiting.
Sounds like I'm just looking at you.
Continue.
Give me a funny look. That Dan Aykroyd, on top of being a funny actor, is a fantastic comedy writer. And a lot of his best work is stuff that he has written. Part of the reason there has never been a Ghostbusters 3 is that Dan Aykroyd doesn't want to write a third one.
Well, didn't he get in a fight with
Harold Ramis? Yeah, probably.
That's why there's not a Ghostbusters 3.
Right.
Well,
Harold Ramis is dead now.
Harold
So.
Ramis is dead.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Dan Aykroyd.
Do you have any examples of what he did on Saturday Night Live?
The Coneheads would probably be the most famous, which then branched out into its own movie. Which it was kind of hard not to do Saturday Night Live.
I feel I've got to.
Every time I hear that song, that is where my mind goes. They play it all the time at work, and I'm just sitting there. Sometimes I feel I've got to get away. And so, that's hilarious, and that stemmed from Saturday Night Live. And for that, Dan Aykroyd, solid number 5.
All right, Zach. Don, what about you?
So at my number 5, and I had a lot of difficulty with this list. Number 1 was squared away pretty easily for me, but
me as well.
5 an honorable mention, and then 3, 4, 2 were kind of all up in the air. But I've got at number 5 Bill Hader.
Okay.
And most of mine are going to be, not all of them, but most of mine are more recent.
Right.
I never watched SNL in the 80s. I watched it a little bit in the 90s. Right. Most of the stuff I've watched from the 90s, I've gone the best of this person and watched it. But I've got Bill Hader. He does a ridiculous amount of impressions and does them all very, very well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stefan, I think, is probably like his most famous character, which he did on Weekend Update, which is just a super flamboyant character.
Is that the one where he's like just losing it laughing while
Yeah,
he's
I have that written down here. I was like, he was usually pretty good about it. Like he wasn't Jimmy
Right.
Fallon who couldn't make it
Right.
through a single
Every
skit. But Bill Hader could never get through a Stefan skit without laughing.
There's the one where he like covers his face and
Right.
sits
Right.
there for a while, like, and knows like I gotta get it together, and he can't do it.
So I have Bill Hader at 5.
I don't. Stefan is not. I've never found it funny. But like I love Bill Hader. I love his work.
I don't-
in everything.
I don't know that
almost but Saturday Night Live.
I don't know that I really liked Stefan, but I like that he liked it so much that he couldn't get through it. Like him laughing at it really made the sketches for me.
Right, and, like apparently Lorne Michaels, who's
Hates.
right, he hates it when actors break character, and I think it just makes it that much funnier that these like trained comedians think something's so funny
Right.
that they can't keep it together.
Right.
I think it just makes it that much funnier to me. But yeah, I don't understand why he hates when they break. And
Well, I
like I
If it
understand Jimmy
stretches the
Fallon
yeah.
because it's every
Yeah.
skit, man. Come on, but. It's just funny. It's funny to me when they can't keep it together.
That's why I can't watch the Tonight Show anymore, because it's just, hey, so this night we got this person, and you're so funny. Like, I haven't told a joke yet, Jimmy. Stop laughing.
Yep. My number 5, I have Molly Shannon at number 5, and like Don, a lot of mine are going to be 90s to 2000s, because that's kind of my heyday watching Saturday Night Live. Right?
So Molly Shannon was a superstar.
She was superstar.
Mary Catherine Gallagher.
Mary Catherine Gallagher. She was really good at like that physical comedy where she would just throw her body
Yeah.
all around the stage to do those skits. And that whole character elevated her from just, Saturday Night Live to, and this is probably true for a lot of folks that we're going to talk about today that went on to movies from Saturday Night Live or took these characters to movies from Saturday Night Live. But those skits were inherently funny. Like they were getting the top billing, the prime slots in Saturday Night Live at that time because they were really, really, really funny. And I thought she was actually decently diverse. She could play a mom in a skit and then come back as a teenage Catholic,
daughter.
Catholic schoolgirl at the next one. So
she's
that
in,
versatility's good.
I think a couple of the skits that I'm going to bring up for people, but I actually don't have her on my list.
I had her at number 5 and bumped her to honorable mention.
Gotcha. All right. So those are our number 5s. Zach, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Eddie Murphy. Again, another breakout star who had quite the jump from Saturday Night Live to mainstream entertainment. He's not been so busy recently, but in the 90s, early 2000s, Eddie Murphy was unstoppable.
In the 80s.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, Beverly Hills Cop.
Right.
Golden Child.
But probably one of my all-time funniest Saturday Night Live skits is is White Like Me, which is where Eddie Murphy puts on whiteface and goes around doing things that would be deemed impossible for a black guy to do, but he has no problem doing them because he's white. Like he goes to a bank for a loan and they're like, "Oh, we don't need to check your credit. You're fine." And like it's an all-time classic. And for that reason, Eddie Murphy, number 4.
Don?
So at my number 4, and I'm probably going to get some heat for this because I assumed he would have been higher on my list. When I started my list, he was much higher. I've got Chris Farley at 4. And that is for, so obviously Matt Foley, motivational speaker who lives in a van down by the river. He played a great lunch lady in one of the skits.
Yep.
And I'm going to bring up the last skit that I have here. I'm not going to go into it much more because I know other people are going to have him later in their lists, I'm sure, just judging by the looks that I'm getting. But he played one of the people who was in Da Bears skits, who was like, "Oh, look at Jim over here. He's had his 3rd heart attack this season. He's still here pumping away at some sausages." So I have Chris Farley at 4, and when I started the list, he was the second name I put down, and then he just slowly kind of got bumped down my list as I thought of more people.
All right.
So he wound up at number 4 on my list.
I'm going to have strong reactions to number 4 in the reaction show to the both of you. My number 4, which you guys my number 4, that's part of the fun. My number 4 is Norm Macdonald, almost exclusively for Weekend Update. I think he is the best Weekend Update anchor, and part of it is I don't even know the words to use, but he was the Weekend Update anchor during the O.J. Simpson trials. And the head of NBC was really good personal friends with O.J. Simpson, and he was like, hey, stop with the O.J. jokes. So Norm Macdonald doubled down on the O.J. jokes, and they were they're so incredibly funny. And there are other times where, so not only would he tell, really nuanced, funny O.J. Simpson jokes, but he would also then, if he didn't have a way to make a really funny, elaborate joke, he'd just be like, plus OJ killed his wife, and then just stare into the camera. It takes gigantic berries to have that much confidence to tell a joke, and if it doesn't land, to just still stare into the camera and until people start to laugh because they're uncomfortable. The stones on that to do that are gigantic, but the Weekend Update anchor Norm Macdonald. And then also when he played Burt Reynolds in the Jeopardy skits.
Turd Ferguson. That's a funny name.
So basically those two roles alone get Norm Macdonald into my top 5.
So were the OJ jokes the reason that Lorne Michaels fired him?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he was on David Spade's Comedy Central show, and they're like, so what happened? And he's like, I got fired for telling OJ jokes. And it was just it's completely nonchalant. Right. He's like, and so he says, the head of NBC, he's like, hey, he's my personal friend. If you could stop. So I went out and I told more.
I always really so you said that Norm Macdonald was your favorite Weekend Update host. Yeah. I really like Colin Jost and Michael Che.
Michael Che and Colin Jost.
I really enjoy
Michael Che a lot, but I think they're not good.
So Norm Macdonald, after that, did he do the Man Show?
No, that's Adam Carolla.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Carolla, that's right.
I understand why you would mix the two up, though.
Right, they both voiced Death on Family Guy.
Yep, that's where I got it from.
But they have similar facial features.
Right, they do look similar.
They look like if you were like, hey, those two are cousins, you'd be like, oh, I see that. Okay, all right. So those are our number 4. Don, what is your number 3?
So my number 3 is Kate McKinnon, who is on Saturday Night Live. I think she's still on it right now.
I believe so.
And there are a couple of just really funny skits that she's in that just every time just get me.
She's versatile too.
Yes. So she does a bunch of she did a skit where she was Justin Bieber in a Calvin Klein in a Calvin Klein commercial. She did one. She was Hillary Clinton in another
Hillary
one.
Clinton a lot,
Right.
But
she's also Liz Warren a lot.
Yeah.
Who is the German?
And Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel. She was Angela Merkel once or twice.
In America, it is called the alt-right. In Germany, it is called Why Grandpapa Lives in Argentina. That is a fantastic joke.
But one of the ones, and again, during quarantine, we watched, when my family was all together, we would watch SNL skits, and one of them was, it's called Close Encounters, and it has Ryan Gosling in it, and another female cast character that I can't remember her name. But they're sat down in a CIA government building, and they're getting interviewed, and they had been abducted by aliens the night before. And so Ryan Gosling's explaining his stuff, and he's like, it was like a beam of light came down and picked me up, and I was laid down in bed of flowers, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I could only describe it as like meeting God and knowing purpose and all this stuff. She's like, a little bit different for me. I woke up in a cold cell without my pants on and in a bucket to do my business in, while 40 little gray aliens watched me pee and poop into a bucket. And so the entire time, like, Ryan Gosling's explaining this amazing experience, she's like, well, now I'm starting to get a little ticked off here.
Like, I was going to say, she's kind of like a trashy.
Yeah, like
Like
she's
a
smoking in this.
Right, I was gonna say, she's smoking in this one, right?
So I'm Donald Ducking it in this in this interview room.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff.
That's a solid choice.
But yeah, no, you're right. She's really funny. I don't have her on my list, but it's a solid choice.
The best one that I have to look up is the quote that she said. She's like, so I'm standing there completely naked with my toot toot and my poop chute hanging out.
And to even say that sentence without
Right.
laughing,
right.
Well, she could say it without laughing, but Ryan
Right.
Gosling
I was
is
like,
over
oh,
there
yeah. I was gonna
like
say, he's
crying
covered.
laughing. And they're like, "Are you okay, sir?" He's like, hey, "I'm just so emotional thinking about it."
So that's Don's number 3. Zach, what about you?
My number 3 is Adam Sandler. That, again, another person who found wide mainstream success after Saturday Night Live, but you kind of got a feel for Adam Sandler's comedic styling when he was on Saturday Night Live. It's where most people know Lunch Lady Land from. So
Lunch Lady Land.
He could show off some of his musical abilities, which is something you don't really think of when you think of Adam Sandler anymore. I know we do, but
Right.
the average person probably
Didn't own the Adam Sandler.
right.
Like,
They're gonna laugh
CDs.
at you, CD.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
But
Had the Hanukkah song I think he wrote while he was in SNL.
Yep.
yeah, which
Opera Man.
yeah, just quality skits came out with him. One of my favorite Adam Sandler ones that I always think of is the one with him and Chris Farley. It's like it starts out as like a stereotypical beer commercial from the 90s where it's just like chicks in bikinis and whatnot, like they're gay. Like it's funny.
So
Probably can't laugh at that anymore, but
I think you can still laugh at it.
That's Zach.
You just couldn't make that today.
right.
Right, yeah. So that's Zach and Don's number 3.
I just thought of another really good Chris Farley sketch.
I'm going to start the hot take parade. I got Will Ferrell at 3.
Okay.
Is that more of a hot take than me having Chris Farley at 4?
I think it depends on your guys' list, but I know.
I'm not upset with Will Ferrell at 3, depending on who you have above him.
I got quality above him.
I would hope so.
So Will Ferrell at 3. His Saturday Night Live days are not as good as what he accomplished outside of Saturday Night Live.
I think that's the same for a lot of these people. Like Adam Sandler's the same way. Adam Sandler accomplished a lot more outside of Saturday Night Live than he did within that.
And you're going to due to a longevity, but Will Ferrell's just his comedy got better after leaving Saturday Night Live than during Saturday Night Live. He was still really insanely funny on Saturday Night Live. They're just outside of the cheerleading skits and the being Alex Trebek. His Harry Carey impersonation is terrible. And that's what.
If the move were made of green cheese, would you eat it?
That's not.
I love his Harry Carey.
Harry Carey had like this much. Like he said really stupid stuff like that, but his voice was much deeper and his delivery is like he made Harry Carey out to be like this just bumbling buffoon, and he is. But he doesn't. He didn't shake his head.
I'm lucky.
If hot dogs were currency, how much ketchup would you eat? Like he didn't talk like that. Like he. So I've always just hated his Harry Carey, but his Alex Trebek impersonation is pretty funny for the Jeopardies. His George Bush was outstanding.
George W. Bush was fantastic.
So I think you have to. It feels like to me you have to have him in your top 5 because he was there, not horribly a long time, but during kind of the second real peak
Right.
of Saturday Night Live, and I think he had a lot to do with that second gigantic peak for Saturday Night Live. So,
Have you ever seen what's it called? You're Welcome, America.
no, I don't believe I have.
It was like a HBO special, I think. That it's like just an hour and a half of Will Ferrell doing George W. Bush, like the week after he left office, and it's fantastic.
Gotcha. So those are our number threes. Don's laughing already. He's looking up skits, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking up direct quotes from skits.
So we'll let him giggle a little more while Zach gives us his number two.
My number 2 is Will Ferrell. So that's why I'm not upset with you having him at 3. I have him at 2. So for pretty much everything you just said.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Just hogging all that.
No, it's
You're hogging all the good Will Ferrell.
You're hogging all the Will Ferrell.
But yeah, no, like you said, he definitely accomplished a lot more. Don said he accomplished a lot more after Saturday Night Live than he did during. But I mean, like you said,
Nobody's famous and then goes to Saturday Night Live,
Right.
Except for Kenan Thompson, who also had like 6 or 10 years of obscurity in between.
Nothing between Keenan and Kel, and then make Saturday Night Live.
But I just had something I wanted to say, and I don't remember what I was going to say.
Well,
All right, so Don's number 2.
My number 2 is Tina Fey. So she did really good with another really good character actor. Her Sarah Palin was amazing.
Yeah. Her Sarah Palin was better than Sarah Palin.
Right. I think they actually, in one episode, they talked to each other as Sarah Palin. And that was a really good, really funny skit.
She was so good at Sarah Palin. There are people, like, they did a study that people attributed a quote to Sarah Palin that Sarah Palin never said.
Right.
But all these people remember Sarah Palin saying it. No, it was Tina Fey. Like, I can see Alaska from my house. Like, no, that's Tina Fey. Like, Sarah Palin is like, I never said that. And so
she could see Russia from her house?
Yeah.
Because she lived in Alaska.
She lives in Alaska.
So
I can see Russia
I can
from
see
my...
Ohio from my house. Well, that's because you live in Ohio.
But like, there were all sorts of stuff that people remember Sarah Palin saying. Like, no, it's Tina Fey.
Another really good skit that she was in was like a Mom Jeans commercial.
Oh, yep.
And it was her and I think probably Amy Poehler.
Yeah. I think Maya Rudolph too.
Terry O'Sherry too, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
But it was like pretty much the whole female cast at that time was in it, and that was a really funny commercial.
It really was.
Mom Jeans.
I remember another commercial we were talking about Will Ferrell. Instead of Gatorade, it was cookie dough. And he's like running, like he finishes his jog. And it's like, oh my gosh, and squirts cookie dough out of a Gatorade bottle. And dude, I was like, get the thirst quenching power of cookie dough. It's so stupid.
So what was really nice about Tina Fey, or what was special about her, is that her and Amy Poehler were really like the two main people on the cast at the time that they were
for a while there.
Right.
And to have like two women be like the leading of the Saturday Night Live cast hadn't happened for the 25 plus years that had happened before that.
Well, like the show was kind of in a weird lull then, because like Will Ferrell and Molly Shannon had just left. A lot of like your bigger name people had left, and they were kind of that in between.
And so it let them show that women can be in like the raunchier skits as well, and they don't have to just be like stupid side characters in them. They can lead the raunchy sketch. And the one that I always think of is I can't think of his name. Christopher Walken was in the sketch, and it's called the Colonel Angus. And so they're sitting there, and they have like these real Southern accents. Colonel Angus. Colonel Angus was a Civil War colonel, and they're in the South. And Amy Poehler and Tina Fey are up there, and they're like, well, I've never met Colonel Angus before. Oh, when Colonel Angus comes.
It all slowly devolves into Colonel Angus. Right. Colonel Angus.
Well, just tap me on the head if I overstay my welcome. And if I need to, I will come in the back door.
Well, Colonel Angus. Colonel Angus, I haven't seen him in years. But you're right. That's like, it is raunchy, but also fantastic.
Right.
And the two of them as writers even were
Right.
really, really funny. And now that Michael Che's the head
Well,
writer.
and Tina Fey kind of left and did 30 Rock right after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
was
about Saturday Night Live.
Right. So, yeah,
So
I got
that's-
Tina Fey too.
Don's number 2. Zach, what about you?
Already did my number 2. Will
That's
Ferrell.
fact.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Big
we
facts.
cut you off because you're dumb. Really, because I had hogged all the Will Ferrell.
Right.
There was a Will Ferrell that I forgot. Oh, Will Ferrell.
We'll cover Will Ferrell, like
Okay.
in the honorable mentions or sometime. So
Okay. All right. Sorry.
you can just shut the fuck up about Will Ferrell.
Well, excuse me. My number 2, I got Eddie Murphy. Mr. Robinson's House is
It's a good one.
phenomenal. Outstanding writing, outstanding acting. It's hilarious comedy. For a long time there, Eddie Murphy carried Saturday Night Live. I think it was pretty much the Eddie Murphy show for a while.
Well, because Eddie Murphy was there in like that second. He was like the first part of the second generation where
Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi and all these guys.
Bill Murray won.
Was it John or Jim? I think it was Jim.
It was John.
Okay.
Oh yeah. But yeah, all the great actors from the 70s had left, and it's just Eddie Murphy. Like, all right, I guess I got to carry this thing now. But Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood is
It's fantastic.
hilarious. So that alone gets Eddie Murphy into my number 2 slot.
When you side-eyed me when I had Eddie Murphy at 4, I thought you were thinking that I was just a moron that I had him on my list, period.
Oh, no,
so,
no.
like,
No,
I'm glad that
just
he's...
was like,
Well, you didn't mention one sketch he was in.
I did.
oh yeah,
I don't know about that.
Like,
White Like Me.
Oh, that's
One
right.
of,
You
it's
did
one
say
of the
you did say
funniest
that.
all-time Saturday Night Live skits.
I haven't seen much Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live.
there's some if you get a chance.
James Brown Hot Tub Hour.
So let's do our honorable mentions before we get to our number 1s.
So I've just got the one honorable mention, and it's Adam Sandler. We've covered Adam Sandler. Or Zach covered him. He started at 5. Bill Hader took his place once I started thinking about it, and Opera Man and all the singing that he did kind of threw him in there, and he's always fun. And he finally got to re-host the show like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, no, it was
The
last
first time,
fall.
yeah, it was the first time he'd hosted it or been back since.
Yeah. Well, and he had got fired. Chris Farley and Chris Rock, I think, all got fired at the same
I think
time.
David Spade.
David
too.
Spade.
Like,
Basically, the head of NBC didn't like their crew or whatever,
Right.
and so he got rid of them. And for a long time, Adam Sandler had said, I resented that. Like, at that time, you're like, well, to hell with them. I'm going to show them. And he did.
right, he's like, I shopped Billy Madison for 2 years, and then finally somebody took a chance on it, and that was the end of that.
Well, and he said, in his return, like, and Lorne Michaels fired me, and then all I've done is my movies. Have
I
made
got fired.
right, and he's like,
Pete Davidson came out.
and then he's like, my movies have made $4 billion at the box office.
So thanks.
So I guess you could say I won. So I've got him on my honorable mentions too. I
think they all Pete Davidson, Andy Samberg, and Chris Rock all came out. Maybe not Andy Samberg, but they all came out and sang "I Got Fired."
I got fired. That was a really great episode of Saturday Night Live. By the way,
Well, that had the Adams. Speaking of guest hosts coming back, that had the Sandler family reunion, where it
Yes.
turns out that every role he'd done in a movie was based off of a different family member. So he has somebody come up to him and say, I just don't know why you won't admit that you based the water boy off of me. It's like, I didn't base the water boy off of you. What?
Based the water boy off of you, Bobby. But there's the fake commercials in Saturday Night Live. There's one that's really funny about like erectile dysfunction, and it's a dad talking to his son on the front porch, and he's like, "It's a suppository," and he's like, "What?" And he shows it to him, and he's like, "Dad, that's a butt plug." He's like, "It's a suppository. It's a marital aid." He's like, "That is a butt plug." It's just hilarious. So I have Adam Sandler on my honorable mention as well. I have Maya Rudolph. She was on the cast forever, and I think she might still she's going to do Kamala Harris, I think, or has done Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she did Kamala Harris during the debates.
She's really funny, and she's just been in the background for a long time, but I don't know that she's ever gotten her due. And then Chris Kattan, I loved Chris Kattan in the Night at the Roxbury skits. What is love? Head bobbing, or he was really good, like Molly Shannon, at that physical comedy where I even forget what the name of the like jungle character he played, that they found him in the jungle and then would bring him to clubs in New York City, and he would eat apples really fast and ridiculous and stupid. So I always like Chris Kattan too.
There's a really good Chris Kattan, Will Ferrell, and The Rock sketch. So Will Ferrell is like the scientist standing up in front. And he's like, we were able to like reproduce the genetic code and bring back these, or they found them frozen. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but it's like, we were able to bring back these Neanderthals. And it's like Chris Kattan comes out and he's like jumping around on the desk and like throwing crap everywhere. And then he's like, we were also able to bring back his father. Papa Peepers, come on out. And so it's The Rock comes out and doing the exact same stupid shit that Chris Kattan is. And that's a really good sketch. Yeah. The Rock might be one of my favorite guest hosts. Some of the stuff he did was really funny. We could do that
as an episode someday, too. The guest host, Peyton Manning drilling kids with a football.
Fantastic. Get back in the porta potty. Don't come out of there till I tell you.
Which, yeah, that's
like in the backstory of like the parents being like, listen, we've been out here for 4 hours. Drill my kid with a football. Right. Like, okay. Like, he was really uncomfortable with it at first. Zach, what are your honorable mentions?
So I have quite a few. But I have Pete Davidson. I just really enjoy Pete Davidson.
I like Pete Davidson.
I hate Pete Davidson. First of all, he has butthole eyes. His eyes look like buttholes.
Okay. Is there a second follow-up point to that, or?
I'm glad his dad died in 9/11.
Whoa. I think he is, too, because that's how he made half of his career.
Pretty much. It's just like, hey, my dad died in 9/11. Yeah. Ariana Grande's had my penis in her mouth. Like, okay. Well, apparently he just...
It's a pretty sweet life.
Living his best life.
Right.
Right. It's not bad, but...
His stand-up on Netflix is really fun.
Oh, it's solid. When he talks about Ariana, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But
if you haven't watched it, watch it.
I watched his Just for Laughs, which is Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't funny.
Watch his Netflix special.
His Netflix special is pretty good. But I also have David Spade, just because, I mean, some of Chris Farley's best work was with David Spade. And, you know, like you said, him, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler were all in that same time, and they all got fired at the same time. Yeah. So, I mean, that has some longevity. I have Molly Shannon, like we talked about, Tina Fey, like we had talked about. And then I also have Andy Samberg. And I know you're not a huge Andy Samberg fan.
No.
So I thought about Andy Samberg, but I don't really care about Andy Samberg except for the Lonely Island.
I would say Lonely Island I think is fine. Like, I think he's funny there, but...
Right.
Even, like, he's been on roasts for Comedy Central. It's just not funny.
Right, because he made, like, a really terrible joke, and it just went, boom, you're roasted.
Right. Like,
and they weren't even that great of roast jokes.
Like, well, and he's trying to be, like... He's trying to be funny by like, I'm so bad at this, right? And then like,
but I like Andy Samberg, but I think
you're bad
SNL,
at this because you're bad at this.
Well, SNL I think was just Lonely Island more than it was.
Well, I'll agree with that, but I mean, I really liked that Andy Samberg kind of made Saturday Night Live update itself a little bit because
they started doing like YouTube stuff.
Right, they started doing the digital shorts. Like before we filmed, like we talked about, like Lazy Sunday was an SNL digital short that is absolutely hilarious to me. But it got
Dick in a Box.
Right. Like
it's
like that trio.
It's not gay if it's in a three-way.
Right. I was gonna say Dick in a Box, Mother Lover, Golden Rule.
Shy
all
Ronnie.
Three back to back to back are just fantastic.
Shy Ronnie.
See, I didn't like Shy Ronnie that much.
No one in the back can hear you. And that was Rihanna, right? Rihanna was Shy Ronnie?
No, Andy Samberg was Shy Ronnie.
Oh, sorry. Rihanna was the main person.
Yes. And then
that's right.
Then Shy Ronnie would just come out and then like in Shy Ronnie 2, Rihanna like walks off stage, and then Andy Samberg just brings it like just hardcore rapping, and it's hilarious. But yeah, that's my honorable mentions.
So basically, everybody who's ever been on Saturday Night Live, it's not Phil Hartman apparently,
or Robert Downey Jr., who is apparently rated as like the worst. Rolling Stone said that he's the worst Saturday Night Live actor or cast member, and that's because like Saturday Night Live just made him completely unfunny. Like the first line is, Robert Downey Jr. is a really funny person. Saturday Night Live's biggest accomplishment of all time is making him unfunny.
Yeah. It's not unfair. So, time for number ones.
Okay, you guys, I'm assuming, are going to have the same number one. I'm going to bring mine out. Yeah. Mine is Will Ferrell. So the cheerleader sketches, which Garrett alluded to, the Harry Carey sketches, which Garrett alluded to, which is one of the quotes that I brought up and started giggling earlier, was he was interviewing Ken Waller, and he was like, you know, if you stare at the sun, it'll burn your eyes. Right, I wouldn't recommend staring at the sun during an eclipse, but it's hard not to. I once took a pair of binoculars and stared at the sun for over an hour. Said, why would you do that? Curiosity, I guess. Heck, I'm curious like a cat. Got a couple friends that call me Whiskers.
My friends call me Whiskers.
If the moon were made of spare ribs, would you eat it? Excuse me? If the moon were made of spare ribs, would you eat it?
And I know I would. Heck, I'd go back for seconds, then wash it down with an ice cold Budweiser.
I love his Harry Carey sketches, and you probably don't because you're a Cubs fan.
No, like it's just.
But everybody else loves Harry Carey sketches. You should too.
I feel like impersonations are bad when you have to be like, Harry Carey. Like,
I mean, it's
like if I have
a caricature.
I'm done. Like, well, my impersonation's not very good if the first thing I have to say is who I am, so you understand the joke. Like, he always had to be introduced as, here's Harry Carey, because otherwise, and I don't think Harry Carey's was that big of a celebrity back then to even be doing impersonations of that the average person would know who Harry Carey was.
It might be. It is. Caught by the second baseman because Harry Carey was drunk in the sixth inning of a Cubs game.
We've all been there.
The Jeopardy sketches are so funny.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, with Burt Reynolds and Turd Ferguson. The Sean Connery sketches on there. It's like,
your mother's a whore, Trebek.
In the sketch that you didn't bring up, and I don't know if this is one of the ones that you guys wanted to talk about.
Hey, shut the fuck up about Will Ferrell. So
was more cowbell, which is probably
that was where I was going.
Right, and I wanted at least something to talk about when I discussed Will Ferrell, and that's got to be probably the most famous or best Saturday Night Live skit. In my opinion, it is the best one, and I think that it's got to be the most famous. I can't think of a more famous skit other than More Cowbell.
No, I think you're probably right.
Yeah. Maybe Matt Foley, motivational speaker. People would probably understand that a little bit more. Like if you said, I live in a van down by the river, maybe more than More Cowbell, but they're I think they're 1A and 1B or 1A and A1.
Yeah.
So I got Will Ferrell at 1.
Speaking of Matt Foley and living in a van down by the river, Zach?
Yeah, we have the same list. Yeah. Or we have the same number one.
Yeah. Chris Farley is number one.
Chris Farley's number one. Number 4 is just blasphemy.
So I didn't have him higher.
It's okay the more I've thought about it.
I mean, really, I can only think of like 3 sketches that he was in. Well, like I said, I remembered the fourth one, and I'll let you guys talk about your number 1 here in a second.
Oh, you're fine.
I kind of didn't talk about him because I knew he was going to be talked about later. Is the one with him and Patrick Swayze where they're doing Chippendales dancing.
Yeah.
It's like
that's so funny.
So they take off their shirts and they're stripping on this dance floor, and the judges are like,
Patrick
Swayze. This is just so close. I can't decide.
To choose between them.
Let's see another dance. And then they get to the end of the judging. They're like, hey, we're gonna go with Patrick here. It's like, right, I understand. Because he's extremely attractive. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But your dancing was great.
We thought about you there is a certain clientele that's looking for a heavier set guy, but just in general. Well, you know, Garrett has talked a lot about like the physical comedy aspect of a lot of the various cast members over the years. And I don't know if anybody was more physical than Chris Farley. 'Cause, I mean, he would just throw himself into stuff.
When he fell through that table, watching David Spade and Christina Applegate's just reactions, just like, it's like you could see like they went to help him, and then
like, oh, we're still on a sketch comedy show.
Well, like Chris Farley famously said, I don't play different characters. I play the same character at different volumes. And like that's...
Well, he brought like a much needed energy to the show in that era.
Right, because it was kind of slowing down. You know, it had been on TV for forever.
Since 1975.
Right. It wasn't what it was anymore. And he kind of helped breathe new life into it. And then it had its like big renaissance.
I've said numerous times, and I mean it, if I could bring Chris Farley back and trade Zach instead, I would do it. I would do it in a second.
Garrett said that to me once, and then I was like, well, and he goes, no, God damn it. He was like, we're taking that trade, and he was like, you are taking one for society, and you're taking the damn trade. I'm like, okie doke.
Society would rather have Chris Farley than you. No, but I would in a second. That career was going to be phenomenal. And it got
just like the booger sugar a little bit too much.
Yeah,
we've all been there.
That'll happen. So, we're about to have it out in the reaction show.
Are we?
No, not really. I'm okay.
We might.
I guess.
This is the most disappointing exit.
Well,
I really wanted to fight you.
I wanted to fight
30
you
minutes ago.
Right. When you said 4 Eddie Murphy and you said 4 Chris Farley, I thought, where is this going? And it ended up, all right. We'll chat in the reaction show. Join us if you would. Don, as always, thank you.
Yeah.
Zach, as always, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Garrett, thank you. I don't think you get thanked enough.
I don't. Thank you. Oh, my gosh. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, at Rankum Podcast. Like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, however you help us out. We certainly do appreciate it. You can find Don on Twitter, at Donnie_G. Zach is at Zach Seawright with an H. And I am at Garrett Seawright. And we will catch you next time right here on the Rankum Podcast.